welcome to another episode of Unzip, Reboot, and Leave podcast, URL podcast. If you want to reboot your energy, live life in your own terms, this is the right place for you. And today we have an author, mentor, and collaborator, and my friend for last more than a decade, um, Kamal Salwan. But recently he published a book called Plug in the Operational Holes in Your Business. And we will explore more on that today on this podcast. So on that, how are you? How are you, Kamal?
I'm very well. Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Okay, so without uh, beating around the bushes, the first question, because I know you researched a lot on it and you spend really a good amount of time on it. So what are some common holes you have seen or you are seeing now in businesses today?
The common holes, if I can divide that into three categories, each business when they are operating, they are into three categories. One, facing the customers. Second, having a product or service, and third, having an operations. So in those three categories, there are many holes, like from a customer engagement perspective. You have to engage them at the time of marketing, pre-sales, sales,
Yeah.
delivery, and then post-sales service and billing also. From a If you look at from a product and service perspective, whether it's a physical product or a digital product, they are all having some sort of a digital information transition, that's required. And invariably, that product or service design is independent of your designing your customer engagement and designing of your operations, because one of the things take a priority, and that way you create a siloed solutions for each, and then unable to plug them together, unable to create them together to work it as a well-oiled machine. Your business is a well-oiled machine. So from a product service, you're unable to find the the performance or the usage metrics, or how well that's serving your customers. And from an operations perspective, you are you have to know how to plug, from a customer's ordering to customer's delivery to getting a cash, ensuring you get the right amount of inputs to your business, and they are all in a siloed places. So the holes, you could say, you are talking to customers but unable to serve them from a 360-degree perspective, because internally you are struggling in terms of getting information from one end, product or service, through to your operations, to enable working with your supplier partners and delivering it to your customers, from a marketing, sales, or delivery and billing and everything. In terms of getting those, uh, because of the lack, information is there, whether it's in the form of a digital information or analog information. It's just your inability to plug them all together, and then once you are unable to do them, it holds you back to deliver a good customer experience and a good employee experience. Because if you look at, if you provide a good employee experience, they will serve your customers better. And from that matter, nowadays, if you look at new generation, they want to work with the state of art tools. They have grown up with iPhones or smartphones or other things, and they have expectations that the business would be behaving that way. But if a business is not, then they struggle to correlate their personal lives with their work lives. and that gives a bad employee experience, and that translates into a bad customer experience. So employees want to work better, they want to do the job, and create value for the customers. Customers expect you to be a company of one, so they expect you not to hand off problems, or when they have a query, or this is sales, or this is delivery, or this is a billing issue, or someone else will call you. So one person should be in a position to have the 360-degree view and resolve the customer interaction challenge or issue or requirement.
Right. So definitely this is a this is true for all the businesses. I mean, small, medium, large.
Yes,
Uh, but like
even startup.
even startup, yes, absolutely. And like from your experience, like which section of these businesses actually face maximum challenge um, about these, or it's all same for all?
Um, it's a the way I compare business is to your own human body.
Mhm.
So which part of the body is painful? Whether it's the breathing part, or whether it's the cardiovascular part, or whether it's your digestion part, or so. It depends, where you have a problem, where if you overdo one and not do the other, it starts to create pain on that side. Because end of the day, all this, like a human body, have a system of systems, and everything is interconnected. The same way in business, you have a systems, and those systems, if one is overused or underused or not properly defined, you start to feel the pain on the other side. And invariably, we go to the doctor only when the pain happens. So rather than, one is an illness mode, one is a wellness mode. So you can go from when you have a problem, and then try to find someone and fix the problem at that time, and they will do the best. But if you keep the wellness thing in mind, then you'll try to keep the balance all the time, and work on all the things as they are important for your business. And solving these things is not only always through the digital part. It depends what it is. Digital normally helps when there is a volume of the interactions, then there's a velocity of the interactions, or when, and nowadays we have a lot of internet of things, or AI solutions, where it can help you mitigate the risk or reduce the risk, or do those tasks where humans are not safe to perform those tasks. So those sort of things, that's how you would look at in structure. um,
Okay. Because you are associated with IT industry for a long time, telecom, IT, whatever, um, and I also come from an IT industry. So, and running my own business, many times these days, I'm struggling to understand these new tools, whatever I have to adapt, and all these things. So, does digitization create confusion between capabilities, skills, productivity? Sometimes it just creates havoc. It's not that matter of doing the thing, it's matter of how to do the thing.
it's a very, very good question. Digital, if you look at each capability, um, has got number of different tools and number of different vendors trying to do it, and the market is flooded with so many options. And yes, it creates all the problems. But like, if you look at like a human, you operate in an ecosystem, in an environment where 8 billion people out there, where so many animals, so many buildings, places, so many things are out there, and you know many times what is best for you, right? And you have to take the right action, you have to make the right choices, but you basically need to understand, for example, if you're eating food, you need to understand what food is good for you, You need to understand your body's requirements. Everyone is unique. The same way every business is unique. So they need to first understand themselves, understand the business in terms of where they are. The second thing, they would need to understand is what's available out there. What capability, vendors are trying to create solutions to make life easy. It comes back to one thing: all the technology that is developed to ease the tasks of humans, in some shape and form. And if you look at, um, most of the computing is gathering the information. If you compare that to your nervous system, if you compare that to how the information flows from your body, that's the digital is basically pre- creating all the information back to your brain. And
Now,
that,
I have another word for it, which is productivity. All these evolution, it's basically to enhance productivity in any shape or form.
yes. So productivity is how we define productivity, is that what is the output based on the input. So if
Yep.
you can generate more output based on the input, that's productivity. That's the ratio basically.
Mm.
Um, so, and invariably, that productivity is getting from a tangible outcomes,
Yep.
whereas digital plays the role in terms of a lot of intangibles behind it. How you make the decisions that increases your tangible output, but there's a lot that goes on from your intangibles, from your brain. So if you look at, like our human body is, mind has got, say, 100 billion neurons, and it has got a separate sections in the brain which processes your five senses, your touch, smell, taste, um, vision, and what's the fifth one? Uh, touch, smells. Uh,
Yeah, the five senses. Yes.
yeah, there's five senses, and each has got different sections in the brain that processes that information, and then helps you take actions in terms of whether you do something with your hands or your feet, or create a sound or whatever. Those five action items. And this making a decision is the key thing to do something, and in what sequence. Because if you look at how the human body reacts to a threat, reacts to a requirement to do something, there that processing happens so fast. And that's where digital solutions are setting it up. And brain, equivalent of the brain is in the AI part. And that's, you would have seen a lot of improvement in AI over the last many years, but very prominently in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
So digital helps you, enables you to make those decisions. And once you're able to make those decisions, then the actions that have to be taken based on those decisions, if they are taken right in time, the correct actions, and then that helps you improve the productivity. So it's not in terms of any confusion or so, but it's in terms of improving the productivity. And in terms of how you decide, which part of the digital, you would do, it's based on your, capabilities. So it's what capability has got um information requirement or action requirement or so. And those capabilities, you have to understand your business, the capabilities model, and understand what's available as solutions out there from in the marketplace, from that plethora of options you have. And then be able to select what is right for you. And many times you can do it yourself, or invariably the vendors have got good salespeople or marketing, and they'll try to position themselves in a way that they can solve all the problems for you. But invariably, they'll solve one part of the your overall business problem, but not everything. So
Mhm.
you need someone, who's a vendor agnostic and understand in terms of what is right for you. It's like a GP, and go to the chemist. He's got thousands of medicines, but everybody will say, I can relieve your pain, but GP helps you understand where is the pain and what is the right medicine for you.
So
So
finding the right GP or like the digital consultant is also a primary thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll help you. You know,
Because, yeah, like what you said is actually correct. I mean, when I am having a problem and I'm asking based on my capability or my network, very few people are actually trying to see that problem holistically. Everyone is always like in a solution mode to give you some solution or some knowledge, which maybe for good, but not necessarily will be helpful for you.
or every else to solve your problem end to end.
Exactly. So understanding the problem holistically, what I realized also need a kind of a maturity from that person,
Yeah,
from the awareness level or the education or the experience, or maybe sometimes just willingly listening.
yes.
That is a major thing because everyone is busy right now or act busy,
Hmm.
you know.
It's like if as a human, if you're operating in this ecosystem of this world, you need to be self-aware. The same way business needs to be self-aware about
Yeah.
what what are their needs, and then try to find out where they can satisfy those needs.
Right. Right. Um, So, what steps should a leader take if they, let's say, if someone need, let's say they decide they will hire a consultant like you
Hmm.
for their business to see holistically. Um, so, what steps they also understand before engaging you, and what are the things they also feel committed to do that to engage people like you?
So the first thing I guess the leaders need to do is understand that uh, understand the need of health, because until that understanding and commitment is not there, they could be talking to multiple consultants and saying, trying to work out uh, what is right consultant for them, or what's because there are many type of consultants as well.
Yeah,
So they that comes back down to one thing in terms of understanding what their needs are, being aware of their business and being aware of what their needs are. And once they determine, they are business consultants, who will help you in terms of your cash flow, who will help you in terms of market positioning, or those sort of the thing. But if you have understood that part, those business needs are understood, and they are clearly in your mind, you're clear about your vision, you're clear about your goals, then they should engage the next stage of it, the technology consultants. And part of the technology could be physical technology or digital, or where some consultants like me, who work across the intersection of the both, can help take can help and advise in terms of what's the right pathway or forward to progress. Look for these things in the physical technology, look for these things from digital technologies, so that as I said before, 80 to 90% of the work is done in the brain to make a decision in terms of what is right for your body, and what action needs to be taken in what sequence. And that's where the digital comes and plays the part. I actually see this thing from many organizations, um, like Tesla. Tesla has got about 90% of its business is intangible, whereas 10% is tangible value. Or maybe this ratio could be, tangible. Some people tell me, well, less than that, because that keeps changing. Um, couple of years ago, Microsoft was actually on the other end. Microsoft was 60% tangible and 40% intangible. That situation equation would have changed over the last couple of years with the Chat GPT, Copilot, and all those sort of things. If in terms of understanding how to what assets to create, when to create, and where to create, and how to integrate them together to create a business model that helps your customers, helps your operations, helps your product and service to solve whatever you're delivering out to the business in a way that gives a holistic customer and employee experience. And that's where it will it will help to understand and pick the right digital consultant.
Right. In your book, you always you talked many places about the resilience, because now these days changes are happening and happening so fast that you cannot sit in your comfort zone. You always need to change and all. Okay, so this is one thing. Second is when you go to a big organization or even mid-size for that matter, there are a lot of things driven by those managers, okay, who may not necessarily be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be resilient, does the leader have to be resilient? Because if they're not, in my experience, you end up actually a very conservative, like closed mindset team, which might do the job day to day, but there will be no growth and you cannot attract and sustain good employees. So question is like, does the leader need to be resilient in their mindset also? Then only they can take this kind of leap.
Yes, the leader needs to be resilient, and the more than the resiliency, first the leader needs to understand one thing, that the change is happening very fast.
Yeah.
I wrote this book before Chat GPT was announced in November 92. I published it before that. But some places, you'll see I've written that the change is going to be exponential, so you need to become ready for that. So one of the things with the business leaders, and that mainly applies for business leaders, who are in the late 50s or so, who have not grown with the digital tools or technology, as such, is to understand that the change is happening very fast, and they need to understand how the change in the overall ecosystem is going to impact their business, and need to prepare their business and make it ready for tactically adjusting to what is happening in the marketplace, and strategically positioning themselves over the next 3 to 5 years or so to leverage what's being available, what capabilities are available, and how to leverage them. Standing or sitting as a bystander is not going to help, because someone else is going to be looking to create your equivalent product or service, not directly in your market, from some other market, and trying to do the whole work which your product or service does for the customer in a totally different way. So you may still be looking at people give examples of like Kodak was, there's no chemical processing, there's no reels happening because everything is digital. That's the analogy I gave. But that was how many years? Like so many years before, when there was a basic digitization. Now the digitization is happening so fast, and AI, every day there are so many new tools are coming to do things in a different way, and you will only be in a position to make use of those tools if your business is digitized and you have digital information for across your processes, across your product and service, and across your operations, so that you can move around. For those who have not kind of avoided digitization and digitalization for so long. Now is the time to get on that. I emphasize that part very much in, pre chat GPT release, but that's much, like significantly relevant at this point in time.
Right.
The fallback of that for not doing is you're not going to be able to find the talent, the skills to do the business the way you have been doing it. That's the first thing. That's one of the
Mm.
challenges all of people are facing, all the businesses are facing in Australia, and that'll continue to be that'll aggravate further.
Right. So, in any business, small, big, there is always physical assets and there are digital assets, right? And more, this this distinction is getting blurred now, you know, and like down the line, maybe a lot of things will be like transformed into mainly digital rather than um, you know rather than physical assets or stuff like that. So how this interaction between physical and digital assets a leader should see it, or how they can emphasize on the changes may come in the future around this.
Yeah, no, you made a good point. All the physical assets, normally you can see, touch, and feel them, whereas digital is you can't see them. But it comes back to how what are these digital physical assets that are needed, and they are still going to be needed.
Yes.
But what is going to be different is that the way those physical assets are going to be configured, the way those physical assets are going to be performed, and the way you are able to monetize them, and the way you can secure them. So, all these things will are going to, and if there is a problem coming out on that asset, how do you fix them, right? And all those things are getting digitized in terms of making those functions of the basic asset, um, so that some higher order manager or higher order supervisor can supervise it or manage it, right? So looking at in terms of how the physical assets are going to be playing into they're getting digitized, and how they're going to be playing into the overarching uh, role of how finding their position. It's You have to think of it as a distributed management. When I say distributed management, it's like normally prior to these things, in the management, you always had a supervisor of supervisors, a manager of managers, and then an executive. And why this hierarchy has been there is because there are decisions made at each level, that decisions are coordinated, right up to your management chain, and so that as a full entity or as a business entity, you can position yourself to do business in a better way, in a way that you have competitive advantage, in a way that it is more sustainable in the long term, in the way you're not harming the environment, you're doing all those things. So digitization is going to be there. So this is already happening. It's not like it was happening even prior to these last 30 years or so. What in the other segmentation of the industry, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now 5, this started. I won't go into the details of that, but industry 3 was when the automation of industry started to happen in 1960s, and the IT started to happen in parallel. And these two, like asset delivery and operations, there's an IT used there, and there's an IT used in making business decisions. They evolved independently. What
Mm.
cloud helped during the early 2000s is, bring them together. What normally we call is operational technology and information technology, and bring them together. And that's where the physical and the digital overlaps start to happen. And all these things happen so that, it can help to make better decisions at each level. And when all the decisions a business can make, which are all data driven decisions, then they're in a better position to make the decision at the right time, at the right place, and at the right moment. Because the if you lack, if you miss an opportunity or so, the cost of that missed opportunity is very high, and it can lead to your business going, basically you're going out of business because you just did not evolve enough at the right time, what to stay across with what technology enablers were being available and being used by other competitors.
All right. So then, like, if we like start to summarize, or like kind of funneling it, what are the top 5 problems organizations may face in next decade? Like, which will be like major, for example, like in the sense, like couple of examples, like this content creation industry will go bust like this. It's a matter of time now. Okay. um, Writing and then this marketing related activities, it's like barrier to entry is like zero, even minus to some extent. So few industries will go bust for sure. So what are the, like that way, top 5 problems organization may face in next 10 years?
So just the way you described that, I think the first problem organization going to face is finding the right talent.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the issue, not because the talent is not there, not it's going to be largely because you or business needs to be positioned to make use of the talent that's going to be available in the in the current times, right?
Or in your vicinity at least.
In your vicinity or in your current time.
Yeah.
So what that means is basically creating the work. End of the day, everything, some work has to be done, and creating the work in such a way that you can stay uh, in the times. For example, hybrid work. You have to do some work on site, some work off site. You have to do some work synchronously, some work asynchronously, to help employees understand and help employees, give them flexibility in terms of when and where they can do the work, so that the overall outcome for the business is there, the product. All this thing under talent. The digital enablers will help you solve the talent issue. The second thing I see, because everything is getting connected and distributed, cybersecurity is going to be one of the challenges, major challenges, because if if you can design your system secure, you can bring security controls and measures at the right time. But many times, when I'm saying, and particularly on the SME end, they are so vulnerable to everything that they run their business in a way which makes sense, because they don't want any extra tax of integration tax, or operational tax, or that sort of a thing, to comply to a few things, but that exposes them to um, a lot of cyber vulnerabilities. In fact, if you see from the code of practice for the Australian directors, the directors are liable for security breaches, the data security breaches in their organizations, no matter what size it is. So that's and it's punishable by law. Uh, so that's one thing. So what that means is you can look at your current operations and secure it, and then slowly evolve your business, secure by design, secure by architecture, and keep yourself secure and ready to play in the ecosystem. The alternative is get out of the ecosystem, which is uh, which is another option, which some people might like to do, like go and live in the farm, or just grow your own veggies and grow, have your own dairy and all those sort of things. But everything is possible. But uh, in this ecosystem, this is what's going to emerge. So two of these problems. Um, the third thing, I guess, the business leaders are going to see that as a problem is what they call as a supply chain, uh, in terms of where they source their materials from and what are the alternatives. At this moment, we call them supply chains, um, in terms of you party A gives material to party B. Party A's output is party B's input material. Party B's output is party C's input material, and so on. So that becomes a chain. And we are tightly coupled in many cases. What businesses need to look at is evolve their capabilities in such a way that rather than being a part of a supply chain, you become part of a supply webs, that you are not overly dependent on one business partners or so. And those who and that's you would see sovereignty issues. You'll see many things, many events will happen, and that will um, cause your businesses or disruptions. We had COVID, we are having wars, we're having so many things around the globe at the moment. So evolving that through just having a tight coupling and dependency on a chain is going to be an issue, and businesses start to need to look at consume it in a web and deliver it in a web. Both sides. What comes into your business and what goes out of your business. Try to make it both in terms of your supply chain and your sales side of things as a web, so that you can serve uh, anyone needing what you have, and as well as you can consume from anywhere things are available for you. So that's the third one. Let me see. Fourth and fifth, I should have prepared more on that. Energy is going to be a major issue. So cost of energy is going to basically go out of proportion. One analysis shows that in Australia, the cost of energy to a business is more than the cost of employees or the wages, which is it's heading that way. So you need to be looking at how to run your business in a more energy efficient way. There's an energy product. You mentioned productivity. There's an energy productivity calculations are also happening, which means for each output, how much energy was used. So you need to look at uh, making it energy efficient. Now, energy is fundamentally is not created; it's converted. So there's a law of conservation of energy. What you have to play as a business is how to efficiently use, source, use, and convert the energy so that it's keeps your business sustainable. Reduce your greenhouse emissions. Use clean energy, like solar or wind. Or other thing is reduce the energy used in the processes, your business, your conversion process of your inputs to outputs, individual processes of like customer engagement processes, or that sort of a thing. So or all the individual systems or processes, try to make them energy efficient, and that's going to be another big challenge. Um, I think I give you four. I'm trying to think what might be the fifth one. Um, Fifth one is basically technology evolution.
Yeah, and fifth one, I think what can, because of this neoliberalism and this, high like inequality in the world, as big are getting bigger, maybe all these big companies become so big that no, like a small player can, you know, will die basically in that force.
Yes, that's a very good point. And actually, there are books people have written in terms of power, and this is not something new happening now.
No.
Concentration of power has always been in, behind the minds of some individuals or some groups. They've been doing it at different times in different ways, and the same thing is happening with the big platforms coming and creating a lot of power. Now, one and that's a good, that's actually a good way to solve the problem with the technology evolution, is in terms of understanding each business, understanding where they play into the game, and rather than they are being driven by the technology, they drive the technology to what they need, and they can always only do this thing if they meet their current immediate tactical needs for next 1 to 3 years or so, as well as think strategically in terms of what might happen 3 to 5 years in the next horizon or so, and use it, and be ready for that, uh, to make use of these technologies. Now, one thing is, say, one big platform becomes so powerful, this is the large language model, as they say. But there are small language models also. There are models, which you can train, and this, which you can leverage the large, but then you have a very uh, small models, trained in a way which is suitable for your business ecosystem. So staying across with the technology evolution, and keeping a foot in, on the ground in terms of, how to manage your current operations, but as well as keeping it into the next horizon, keep a watch on that and prepare and steer your business towards that side. But
And as you know, you are also associated with us in our mentorly game, where we are helping organizations who are coming to Australia from outside. So for those companies who wants to come to Australia to do business from any part of the world, uh, let's say, what are the 5 things they should look for when they are thinking to come to Australia?
I think the first thing they need to look at is the because every business will be run by some resources. So the first thing they'll need to look at is what talent pool is available in Australia and what talent pool is not, so that they can structure their business in a way that they can make use of what's available here and what's available elsewhere, so that coming back to the hybrid work mode, they should be in a position to do this thing. That should be one of the major consideration. The second thing after talent would be, the 5 problems which I mentioned before. They need to look at those ones anyhow, but talent is the key. In terms of evolution of the talent, the same thing is happening elsewhere also, in other countries as well, which were traditionally kind of a low wages outsource candidates, like India, Vietnam, China, those countries. The talent is actually evolving there also. So uh, the way they need to look at is how to structure and operate their business, whatever business, whether it's a physical physical assets or physical goods based business or a digital business or so. Um, the second thing, I guess, they should look into more in terms of the market. The market, if their business is for the local market only, they need to understand that this is not as big as some of the other countries, and particularly as you and I come from India, that's a very big market. So here, the second part is understanding the market and how it behaves. If you look at from, like compare Australia to America or USA, that's a land of immigrants. There's a land of immigrants as well. But people over there as a culture, they are totally different. They are more early adopters or innovators or that sort of a thing, whereas in Australia, the culturally, we are uh, less innovators but more adopters, early or late majority adopters, and there are a few laggards also. That happens everywhere as well. The From the culture perspective, Australia is pretty much as a largely a conservative society. So they should consider that they will be entering into a conservative society, and they should accordingly, think their business that way. A business which is very suitable for USA may be not as suitable for Australia, or vice versa. And same thing with, because every land has got its own, cultural things. Um, the other part, I guess, we, coming back to the culture thing, and being this as a conservative or very regulated society, this helps, and this kind of hinders also a few things. Helps in terms of, like, Australia survived the global financial crisis because the society and the regulatory system was in place, and they didn't take that much of a risk, and the whole operating environment and the society was very risk averse and conservative. But the downside of that one is, it's not that innovative. If you compare that with, there are venture capitalists here, there are startups here, but that's not as compared to what you see in US, San Francisco, or Bay Area, or that sort of a thing. So if you're thinking of like a business, where you want to be at the leading edge of the technology, maybe there's a choice to make accordingly. But if you're looking at a business, which is covering the Australian environment, the ecosystem, and you want to bring the innovation over here, Australia would be willing, because you will find early adopters and innovators here, who will help you, build your business that way as well. I can think of more things in terms of,
So, like, culture is one of the important things you are saying, and which also my perception also.
yeah,
Uh, it's not necessarily like Indians are behaving like Indians. Indians are behaving like a very different, not Australian, not Indians. Even Americans are not behaving like Americans here. So it has its own cultural connotation to it, and you have to be adapted
yeah,
with it. Otherwise, it's very hard to send the message across or communicate, at least in this culture.
yeah.
So which is a problem. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, culture has got many variants. Like you would have heard of this tall poppy syndrome, also,
Yeah,
where, this is not very suitable. If you have an entrepreneurial kind of a thing in a very traditional environment,
yeah,
they will look into, you know, they will not take the risk basically
yeah,
with you in
yeah.
that.
Do you think it is changing?
I think it is changing, the way when I interact with the next generations or so. The reason it is changing
You
is
have to.
you have to, the reason it is changing is because of the social media, because of the internet,
Yeah.
y- making all the other cultures transparent and accessible to you so that people over here are evolving the culture along with what is happening elsewhere in the world. So
And I think like another observation I have is people who are, let's say, in 40s, because they are quite open to new things.
mhm.
When they will go to the proper leadership tier and like that decision making capabilities, maybe this perception will change in a big way. But until that, whatever layer is there, they will sit there. Things will not change much.
Things will one another thing here from a cultural perspective is Australia likes to evolve rather than have a big bang change, big bang uh, business changes. So, and whether it's a land of Darwin or whether it's some other reason or so, who pioneered the theory of evolution, but it's a the you have to evolve here. Evolution is the key thing. Staying doing business in Australia. If you go and inform, like a major change, you'll have a hard sell. People are not that adaptable. You might find some, but to make a sustainable business, it's an evolutionary path is one of the things that helps.
Right. So we are almost like end of the thing and last thing, because we always talk about immigration because we are also immigrant in this country, and you are here for nearly 3 decades or more than 3 decades now.
Yeah.
So based on your 3 decades of experience, whoever wants to come to Australia as a new immigrant, what are the things they should look for or they have to keep their eye open? So some tips for them who wants to come to Australia as a professional.
So I think as a professional, Australia is a very good place. First of all, it's away from a lot of the other world problems. Australia is girt by sea. I mean, this is from that perspective is a very nice place, nice piece of land, where you can build your future here. Um, Along with that, there are cultural things, which I just mentioned before. You need to keep that in mind. When you're coming over here, the Australian uh, place, if you see, from a primary production of the agriculture, mining or so, that's a very high in terms of the economy, but low, very low on employment. If you look into the secondaries like manufacturing also, which went down but now is coming up. So that's another area which is emerging because Australia has got abundance of raw materials. So finding a career in manufacturing here is something which is on the upward trajectory. That's something they should look into that. But largely, Australia is a service-based economy also. So any professionals who are coming here, think of it a place where you can come, grow, assimilate into the culture, and people are very friendly here. People are able to help you anytime. Sometime tall poppy syndrome might come in, as long as you are humble and friendly yourself, they're going to reciprocate it very well. Um, so from in the service industry, there are plenty of careers of professionals, who have here, be that in logistics, supply chain, be that in other industries, which are like a transport. They are service industry serving both government and private sector, and a lot of IT is in place of that. So when you're coming over here, think of it very customer and people centric approach. You would have as you progress in your career. That's the way it, it's going to be very, very helpful.
All right. So on that, Kamal, we should end here. It's a nice conversation with you, a lot of insights, a lot of your experience, and you very articulately mentioned the steps organization or individual should take. Anything you want to say last?
Yeah, I wanted to say those uh, who want to understand, how digital works. So, the book which I have published before, it's available from my website, digitalinactcom.au/book. And
I will also keep that in the link.
yeah, thank you. And to honor your, podcast, and so your listeners, I've created a promotional coupon code over there called GBURL, which is Gotham Basak Unzip,
Reboot and leave.
Reboot and Live. One for that. So that gives you 50% off, but uh, there's a shipping cost, which is something I can't change, but I can change the cost just to help people, buy the book, and it will help you understand the 10 areas which I mentioned, structured into those uh, three top layers, and then 10 different areas. But that's just the beginning, just to understand how digital helps the overall business to solve the operational challenges and position your business towards success in the next immediate horizon and long-term horizon. So that's something I want to say. And the second thing I want to say, thank you very much for having me on your podcast, and hope you get multiple new episodes that are coming along.
All right. So on that, as you saying that if you want to really learn new things and want to live life in your own terms, this is the place for you. So we are closing now. This is Gautam Basak, URL, Unzip, Reboot, and Leave podcast. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you, Rohan. And thank you for listening.